Disclaimer, the guy you're going to listen next has multiple pronunciation disorder, if a thing like that actually exists. Anyways, this video can also be a really good guess the gibberish game for you. Stop watching the video if you're not interested.
So,
Hello.
do you have any idea what are we going to discuss today?
I don't have a concrete idea, but I guess it is something to do with population.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Let me show you a video first. Let me show you a video.
I think he brought you. Let me guess. Your home? It was. And it was beautiful. Titan was like most planets. Too many mouths, not enough to go around.
One eternity later.
Who wants to murder trillions?
With all 6 stones, I could simply snap my fingers. They would all cease to exist. I call that mercy.
You all know who he is,
That goes without
And-
saying.
right? For those who don't know,
Batman?
that's why that's why I was covering. For those who don't live in this world, don't live on this planet, and don't see
Who live
movies
under a
at
rock?
all,
Who live under a rock?
those who have time traveled from the past or something, he is Thanos.
Tell me his name again.
Thanos. He's a plague, Tony. He invades planets, he takes what he wants, he wipes out half the population.
Thanos happens to be one of the greatest villains, most popular villains on the screen that has ever appeared. So he has this theory that the universe's resources are finite and there are way too many people. In a scene, he argues,
Little one, it's a simple calculus. This universe is finite, its resource is finite. If life is left unchecked, life will cease to exist. It needs correction.
You don't know that!
I'm the only one who knows that.
so in real world as well, we have many people who believe same as Thanos. And we all agree that Thanos' idea of snapping everyone out of existence, I mean murdering trillions, is of course evil. But we all somehow agree that overpopulation is a problem.
Anytime you watch this, almost 1,200 people will have been added to our population.
We happen to be alive at an incredible time in human history where the world's population is undergoing this massive transformation.
In 2015, the world has around 7.3 billion inhabitants. We have added 1 billion people since 2003 and 2 billion since 1990.
Worries about overpopulation are bad.
We need to address much more aggressively the population part of the equation.
If we keep ignoring this exponential population rise, nature will reduce human population for us.
Breathing the same oxygen, sharing the same space, and creating more and more greenhouse gases.
Overpopulation.
Overpopulation is a big concern, and it's such a popular narrative that there are people out there in real world who believe that Thanos did nothing wrong. In fact, I am part of a subreddit by the same name, Thanos did nothing wrong. You have this scene in Hawkeye where Clint Barton is holding a cup that says Thanos was right. So in Marvel universe as well, the people who actually suffered Thanos's cause of Thanos' evil plan also thought that Thanos was right. So it seems,
In fact, let me tell you about this one person. There was Henry W. Kendall, and he's a Nobel laureate, and he said, and I quote, "If we don't halt population growth with justice and compassion, it will be done for us by nature, brutally and without pity, and we will have a ravaged world." So there have been a lot of people who claim this about this natural catalyticism, that there will be a natural culling if we don't ourselves take initiative to control our population. And while we're on this Marvel issue, let me tell you, I had this one cousin, and at the time, Endgame was releasing. It was really hard to get tickets for Endgame. Like, बड़ी शान की बात होती है, भाई Endgame का ticket है हमारे पास. So he posted the story one day that after seeing all this rush for Endgame tickets, I now have started believing that Thanos was right. Thanos had a point. So,
particularly,
I guess he had a point.
Even I believe that Thanos is right every time I have to share something with my sister. I truly believe that.
Alright, that's a valid point. And before we lose the narrative with this point, let me quickly quote a philosopher like Tanmay did, like Tanmay always does. I knew Tanmay will come up with some philosophers to quote. That's why I didn't lag behind and added some of them. So he goes by the name Thomas Robert Malthus. He wrote a paper, an essay on the principle of population. He basically argued that the future of an unchecked population is catastrophic. So in which there is a line, and I quote that the power of population is so superior to the power of earth to produce subsistence for man that premature death in some shape or other visit the human race. You can see the concern here. It's a popular narrative. There are many people out there in the world that believe that we should take strong steps to control the unchecked population, like Thanos. But what if I told you that all of this, all the narrative, all the things that we have been believing in is all wrong? Thanos was wrong. And we have Utkarsh Saxena here, quite an intellectual, and we have Tanmay, not Tanmay but not the comedian, we have philosopher Tanmay Gaur here. So yes, we are back after the first boring episode.
1 घंटे का वीडियो कौन देखता है अनलेस किसी बड़े सेलिब्रिटी का
ये भी कौन ही देखता है, पर ठीक है, हम फिर से आ गए।
नहीं देखते ही क्यों भाई, मीम चलाओ, इंस्टाग्राम चलाओ, कहाँ हम तीनों पे टाइम बर्बाद कर रहे हो, जाओ बाय।
एग्जैक्टली, क्या जरूरत है?
No one will watch this either, but we don't care. Alright, so we were talking about Thanos and how Thanos was wrong. Well, Thanos was not just wrong. I think his plan was stupid.
साला ये दुख का खत्म नहीं होता बे।
तो हੱਸਦੇ ਚਿਹਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਤਕਲੀਫ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ, ਉਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਇਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਕਲੀਫਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਡੀਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੁੰਦਾ।
It was heavily miscalculated, and let me tell you how.
Number 1.
Reason number 1. It's not population explosion according to the popular narrative. Rather, it's population shrinkage, which is the problem. In 1950, women were having an average of 4.7 children in their lifetime, which has nearly halved to 2.3 in 2021. And a study published in the Lancet journal projects that it would fall to below 1.7 in 2100, which is by the end of this century. 23 nations are expected to see their population go half by the end of this century. We have Spain, Japan and other such nations. Japan's population has already peaked in 2009 and it's expected to go below 75.3 million by the end of this century. Well, disclaimer alert here. I've picked some random studies. You I'll of course be putting the link down below in the description. You go and check and please confirm. Studies could be wrong, and I do agree with that, but I'm blatantly putting these data because I see a general trend, and I basically see the same stuff in all the studies. So yes, there could be slight variation in the data which I present, but yes, I'm just trying to put forward the trend. So yes, we have Italy here. Its population will peak at 61 million and will go down below 28 million by the end of the century. We have Spain, Portugal, Thailand, South Korea, and several such other nations whose population are expected to go half by the end of this century. Even countries like India and China, I mean, if you think of India and China, you just see a huge population and ever increasing population, so many children born per year. But let me tell you, National Family Health Survey in India in 2019-21 survey put the fertility rate to an all-time low of 2 children per woman. Well, it has come below to 1.6 in the urban setting, which is well below the replacement fertility rate, and that's 2.1 in the rural setting. So we can finally say that India's population is stabilizing. Talking about China, last year it saw just 10.62 million babies born, which happens to be the lowest since 1950. Well, if you look at this graph, you can see a downward trend during the Great Famine, during the era of Mao Zedong, which you all know about, and we can see a similar trend in the present age. So China's population could start shrinking well below before we have predicted. So India is supposed to take over China by the end of this century, but India's population is stabilizing as well. So we can see our population shrinkage, a clear population shrinkage trend. It seems that the population is ever increasing, but let me tell you, the population is soon going to peak and it will start falling after that. It's expected to peak around 9.7 billion in 2064, and then it will start falling and it will be around 8.8 billion by the end of the century. And if you see the current trend, the fertility rate around the world, it's well below the replacement rate. Now, what is replacement rate? Well, according to the UN, replacement fertility rate is the total fertility rate at which women give birth to enough babies to sustain the population level. According to UN, the UN Population Division, a total fertility rate of about 2.1 children per woman is called the replacement level fertility. Now, why is it 2.1 and not 2?
Because there are 2 parents and it should be 2. Why is it 2.1?
Well, I guess
No,
because of mortality rate and some other factors. I'm not sure, but yes, these are some factors that affect.
Now, since we have the right answer, let me. मेरा answer होने वाला था कि ऐसे ही sexy लग रहा है. But ठीक है, it's good we have the correct answer.
So we have correct answer.
Exactly.
So am I getting any voucher from Shashank?
I don't think ये meeting recording में आएगा, लेकिन we are running out of the time, which says that we don't have Zoom Premium and काफी गरीब हैं हम. So audience, please donate and help me donate the voucher to Utkarsh for giving this right answer.
I'm very needy.
Now, what are the causes for this? Well, if you would even are slightly interested in this topic, you might know that the more women are educated, the less fertility rate is. The more educated they are, the less children they are supposed to have. Apart from that, we see a significant drop in the number of women at an optimal age for childbearing. Apart from that, we have changing attitude of parents, the modern parents, to have children because of their financial conditions. It's not like the older generation who would have more and more children despite the fact that they can't feed them. Modern parents are slightly more calculative, so more children will mean that more resources to spend on, and they don't want that. Situation will be, of course, worsened by the COVID-19. I actually wanted to like mention this economist from China. Is called Ren Jieping. Is an Evergrande economist. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'm pronouncing a lot of things wrong. I've been speaking multiple accents. I don't know why I'm not doing it on purpose. Alright. So there is this platform called Weibo. It's like Twitter. So it tweeted on this platform that the central bank of China needs to print 2 trillion yuans to fund people to have more and more children. Of course, he was banned. It's China. You can't talk shit there. Especially if you are Ren Jieping, you happen to be a renowned economist, and you can't talk shit. But the Chinese government is doing the same. It's giving baby loans to people to have more and more children. So nations finally have realized that it's the population shrinkage which is a problem. What could be the solutions? Of course, free childcare. China is giving baby loans, and which happens to be a good solution. You need to provide free healthcare access for pregnant women as well as children, so that people could afford having children. Apart from that, we need to have a population which is multi-ethnic. We need to be open for migration. I see a huge problem with China and Japan to be specific. Their population is quite mono-ethnic, and you can't I think, in my opinion, you can't solve your population problem by being so strict to being mono-ethnic. I mean, take the example of US. They also have a very low fertility rate. I mean, since 2007 their fertility rate has been below the replacement level, and it's the 6th consecutive year that the number of births has declined. So they have a huge population problem, but they solve it through migration. We see the US population being replaced. It hasn't gone down. It's due to the migration. There is another solution that people talk about. It's synthetic wombs. It's quite futuristic, and I don't seem to have an opinion on this. But yes, we could be a civilization that has babies with the synthetic wombs, that has babies in the labs, babies prepared in the labs. So yes, I'm quite excited. Even if something seems dystopian, it's futuristic, I'm quite excited, and I'll have an opinion once I read papers on this. So yes, with that, let me quickly come to the second reason for why Thanos was wrong.
Number 2.
Thanos believed that universe's resources are finite and there are way too many mouths to feed. But was he right? Well, we have, as I mentioned, people in real world as well who believe the same as Thanos. We have this Malthus guy, which I quoted earlier. He predicted in his paper that if the population increased at a constant rate, the world would add like 1 billion people every 25 years. If we go by that prediction, there would be like 10 billion people by now. But okay, 7 billion is a quite significant number. And he further wrote that if this is the case, there would be more and more starvation and death every single day. Malthus, do you see anything like that? In fact, we are way more fulfilled than what people were in your age. Now we have this Stanford University bio professor Paul Ehrlich. He and his wife in 1968 wrote an extremely influential book, which you might know about, The Population Bomb. In the book, they argued the same thing as Malthus, that without efforts to reduce the population, there would be mass starvation and death. There's a line in the book, and I quote, "The battle to feed all of humanity is over." He wrote this in 1968. In the 70s, hundreds of millions of people will die and starved to death in spite of the cash programs embarked upon now. Well, bitch, it's 2021 and you are so wrong. I mean, yes, people now die out of starvation, but we are way better than what we were in 1968, and we are becoming better and better. There are more and more people coming out of their poverty and starvation. So you are blatantly wrong, bro. Even though he was blatantly wrong in 1980, he accepted a wager with the University of Maryland business professor Julian Simon. They had a bet. Simon challenged Alec to pick any basket of raw materials which he wished, and a little time period of 1 year and over 1 year, and bet that those resources would be cheaper in the inflation adjusted terms over that time period. So Alec chose a few raw materials like copper, chromium, nickel, and tin and tungsten, and he chose a period of 10 years. In October 1990, when the bet, the time period of the bet ended, Alec was so wrong. Every commodity that he chose on the list was cheaper and more available, in spite of the largest growth in the population of any decade in the history. Malthus, Alec, and Thanos, they didn't quite understand the nature of natural resources and origin of material prosperity. They were quite wrong. Dear Thanos, economies are not sum zero, that something is gained from one side is lost to the other. Wealth is not something that just exists out there in the world and is hereditary, that is divided among the people of every generation. Instead, wealth is something that is created by the human ingenuity. Whenever there is a valuable innovation, the wealth will increase. Wealth is created by humans, so are natural resources. Natural resources are of course finite in technical sense, but are merely limited to our imagination and understanding of how to use them. Take the example of crude oil. It was 150 years ago, it was found all over the world, but we didn't know what to do with that. We just thought it was some black goo, and instead we killed whales or used cow dung to light and warm our homes. See, what has oil done now? We discover oil, there is boom, there is an industrial revolution, the world is all of a sudden prosperous and stuffs. Yes, you could argue a lot of stuffs here and what oil does, but new technology could very soon replace oil. We have things that will be replacing oil very soon, and we could even have new discoveries that we don't know about yet, and 10 years later we could be using them. So it's like that. More people doesn't just mean that there are more mouths to feed. It also means that there are more minds and more hands to create, innovate, think. It's like that. Just need to let them free enough to think and create. I mean, when Malthus wrote that paper, from then our population has gone to like 7 times. And if Malthus, according to what Malthus predicted, we would be starving to death by now. Are we? Instead, in the last 30 years alone, we have cut the poverty to like half. It's a big achievement from what Malthus would have predicted. The main problem never was that world was overpopulated. I think it was that the people were not free enough to think and create. I mean, history is full of leaders who would impose their will on the society like you did, Thanos, and not let the people be free enough to create, innovate, and solve the problem. So, my third reason is related to that only. Let me quickly come to that.
Number 3.
Let us all for a second agree to Thanos that yes, universe's resources are finite and there are way too many mouths to fill. But even if that is true, does taking a step like Thanos did wiping out half of the population of the entire universe, does that really solve the problem? Well, when asked to the studio, the Marvel studio, it said that no, not just the human population, but the entire species will, half of the population of the entire species will go extinct. Well, that would mean that microbes, the bacteria that are necessary for our digestion, will also, half of them will also go extinct. And that will mean that will not have a proper metabolism and will get sicker and sicker, and most of us will die. Leave alone the scene shown in the movie itself, that there are so many car crashes, there would be so many operators at big machines that should fail, there would be nuclear plant blast. So let's take that in account as well. Then we have insect population. Half of them will also go extinct. That would mean that there won't be enough insects for the pollination of plants, and that would mean that most of the plant species will also go extinct. Well, Thanos, your idea for retiring after snapping wouldn't have worked if you really snapped in the real world. Apart from that, there is a study that says that yes, most of the small species might survive, but it would be a really hard time for large species like ours. So it's gonna be catastrophic. There's nothing that is going to help us because of what Thanos did. So yes, my question remains that does taking extreme steps like Thanos did really help in the real world?
Like Thanos, we have a real world example, China. So in late 70s, what China did is they applied one child policy in their country. And then begins a dramatic shift or dramatic fall in their population. Their population started raising, but their workforce started falling. और उसका रीजन था क्योंकि डेमोग्राफिक चेंजेस बहुत जल्दी आ रहे हैं. इन 2013 इन सारी चीजें को नोटिस करते हुए चाइना को वो वन चाइल्ड पॉलिसी हटानी पड़ी. उन्होंने कहा कि अब हम टू चाइल्ड पॉलिसी लाएंगे, लेकिन टू चाइल्ड पॉलिसी भी वर्क नहीं की और 2021 में उन्हें वो भी हटानी पड़ी. सारे रेस्ट्रिक्शंस हटाने पड़े एंड दे आर गिविंग इंसेंटिव्स टू द कपल्स फॉर मोर चाइल्ड. मतलब अगर 2 से ज्यादा बच्चे हैं तो आपको सॉफ्ट लोन्स मिलेंगे, आपको तरह तरह के प्रिविलेजेस मिलेंगे. सो दिस शोज कि ये जो एक्सट्रीम स्टेप्स हैं, जस्ट लाइक वो थैनोस का स्नैप वाला था, एक्सट्रीम स्टेप्स किसी भी तरीके से इस इशू को सॉल्व नहीं कर सकते पॉपुलेशन को.
Exactly. I mean, I'm reminded of this quote by Helen Keller, and I remember she said that it is not possible for a civilization to flow backwards while there is youth in the world. Okay, youth may be headstrong, but it will advance its allotted length. And along the same lines, I think we can twist her words and we can say that this is exactly the problem with this is exactly what starts happening. When there's not enough youth in a country, the civilization starts going backwards. I mean, as of in 2018, there were 249.49 million people in China who were above the age of 60. That's 17.9% of the entire population. And these people actually, what starts happening is it has its serious ramifications on the country's society and economics. And there are quite a burden.
It's especially concerning for a country like China, which heavily relies on a youth population. How did China grow? Its manufacturing sector. It has a huge workforce of manufacturers, young laborers, which helped China in recent years reach these heights. And it's very, very concerning for a country like China.
Yes, but this issue that's what happens. They end up becoming the a burden on the state, so to say. I hope I'm not being too harsh, but that's what happens because they're not contributing to the GDP in any way.
The fertility rate has fallen, and we all know the fertility.
One eternity later.
I again repeat, if we want to talk about China, then it will take 2 or 3 more videos, and our viewers will be, exhaust.
Maybe we'll make another separate video on it someday. Which
Yes,
you
on
will
China,
make.
but this surely shows
But we'll
that
make it nonetheless.
China.
All right. मन नहीं भरता हमारा. We have to पूरा. That's why we have named this episode Phokat के ज्ञान. Supposed to be boring and बेमतलब का जबरदस्ती का ज्ञान. Anyways, it was going a bit longer than what it should be. So I think we should conclude the episode right now. So yes, taking strong extreme steps like Thanos did does not really solve the problem but actually create more. So with these 3 points, I therefore prove that Thanos was wrong. Nahi manne to. Anyways, if you have stick to this point, thank you very much. And also, कितने बल्ले हो यार. तो हमसे भी बड़े हो. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. If you are really watching up to this point, like, share, subscribe, of course. Even if you don't, we don't care. We'll keep posting more and more, even if we get 10 views or so. Or गाली पड़ी तो बंद करना पड़ेगा, which we have done in real life. Anyways, with this, I, Shashank Shekhar, Utkarsh Saxena, and Tanmay Gaur sign off. Thank you. See you in the next episode, if we really make it. And of course, you must be wondering about my clothes. How did it magically change into this? I'm not recording this later. Actually, I have something similar to reality stones. So I can magically change my clothes anywhere, anytime. Goodbye.